welcome. Yes, your ears not deceive you. This is a midweek Red Mile rundown. Why? Well, the Flames decided they wanted to be the main players in the National Hockey League on Tuesday night, and they made a trade. So we might as well jump on the podcast and chat about it. I am your host, Johnny Soap, and of course, alongside me, as always, Robert Munich. Robert, how we doing today?
I'm doing great, and I did not see this coming. I really didn't. Like, out of all like the young players out there and all the trade packages I was thinking of, Simon Nemec never really crossed my mind. So that one, when that news dropped, when Pierre LeBrun dropped that bomb, I was pretty surprised, but I'm overall pretty excited.
So the trade is the Flames have acquired defenseman Simon Nemec and winger Maxim Tsyplakov from the New Jersey Devils for a conditional 2027 first rounder. That's the pick they got from Vegas. And a conditional 2028 first rounder. That's the one they got from Colorado. Both of those are top 10 protected. A second rounder in this year's draft should be the 35th overall pick. And Etienne Morin. That trade dropped yesterday. Well, I was at work and I was trying to thumb out tweets and I was trying to get my thoughts together while trying to get my job done at the same time. It did not go well. But the reaction to of the trade from you, Robert, when you saw the news cross your desk, other than pure shock, what do you make of this move from the Flames and what Craig Conroy was able to pull off?
This is exactly the kind of move I wanted the Flames to make. Take advantage of all those draft picks that you own. Take advantage of maybe some prospects that have kind of fallen, out of the system a little bit, like Etienne Morin. Use those and go out and try and find a difference maker. And I think they might have done that here. I mean, it's not a guarantee that Simon Nemec is going to work out here in Calgary, but I like the fact that they took a swing. Nemec is a second overall pick, 22 years old. In his junior days, he was incredible. Like, he was an amazing defense prospect. At the Olympics, he showed out. Him and Slavkovsky were the reasons why Slovakia was able to get to the bronze medal game. So we've seen, kind of stretches of brilliance from Nemec, and now it's just time for him to find that kind of more consistently, and he's going to have a chance to do that here in Calgary. There's going to be lots of ice time available on that right side for sure. So, yeah, my initial thoughts were, once again, I was pretty surprised, but after digesting it and thinking about it, I really like this move for the Calgary Flames. I'm a pretty big fan.
We've chatted on many podcasts since the end of the season, so a couple months worth of podcasting, and I've been pretty consistent on a couple of things. I wanted Craig Conroy to be aggressive and take advantage of this draft capita and go for quality over quantity, and I think we nail it on this trade. Young defenseman, 22 years old, former second overall draft pick, a guy who got kind of pushed down the depth chart in New Jersey. Kind of felt like New Jersey chose to put all their eggs in the Hughes basket, and so kind of gave Nemec a little bit of an outside look, and they still have Dougie Hamilton there, so he's kind of expendable there. The Flames take advantage of it. They're giving away some late first rounders that are, let's be honest, hopefully these are close to being second rounders, like in that late 20s, early 30s area when these picks come to fruition. And you're talking about a defenseman that we sent out in Etienne Morin that really felt like he plateaued the year after his draft year. And so for me, this is taking a bunch of quantity and turning it into a quality player in Simon Nemec. This guy coming out of in his draft years, like, people really liked what this guy did. You mentioned the Olympics. You go back to when he was playing in his younger days, 16, 17 years old, and how he was just running those leagues and being a very complete defenseman over there, very offensive defense, I should say, over there. The trick now is to make him a more well-rounded defenseman, but also allow him to use his skill. And like Craig Conroy was saying on the radio, I was listening to Fan 960 with Pat Steinberg, and he's like, we're going to give this kid all of the minutes and all of the time to show what he actually can be in all situations that we can put him in, and just play him the minutes. And I think that's the right approach when it comes to a young defenseman like this. And so it gets me really excited to think about what he could be here in Calgary, why Craig Conroy targeted this exact player, and how he fits in Calgary here. So for me, this is exciting on a couple of different levels. And so the day after the trade, 24 hours later here, you're sitting here and I'm thinking the Flames kind of made a very good strong bet here. It is a bet, so there is going to be the potential that this doesn't work, but there's so much going the direction that this is a great move from Craig Conroy. It's exactly what I wanted to see him do. Be aggressive and take advantage of what's in front of you with the draft capital. It's an incredible move for me from Craig Conroy.
I think for me, the big key in making this a success is Ryan Huska buying into the idea that Simon Nemec has to play 24 minutes a night. Like, he's got to be one of your go-to guys. You got to give him every opportunity to succeed, and that's mainly going to be at 5-on-5. I think Nemec will be a really good fit as the power play 2 quarterback, because obviously you want Zane as that power play 1 QB. But listening to Craig, he had talked about even putting Nemec on the penalty kill too. Like, you can tell Conroy and the Flames, they really believe that that Simon Nemec is really gonna turn into that like 200-foot defenseman guy that not only can rush the puck up the ice and use that great skating and hands and shot, but also he can shut guys down too. That's what they're hoping. It's interesting, John. Like, I on Reddit, I put out a question to Devils fans. I was just asking them, what are Flames fans going to get in Nemec? And kind of like the main sort of themes that I got from a lot of the Devils fans was that you're going to love that Simon Nemec when it comes to the offensive side of the game, when it comes to the puck movement and him getting involved in the offense and getting shots off and things like 3-on-3 overtime and the power play, like everything when it comes to the offensive side of the game, you're going to be really happy with him. But there were a lot of question marks about the defensive side. A lot of fans pointed out that he's prone to making, some pretty brain dead turnovers and, not making smart decisions, losing coverage in his own end. So that part was, I wouldn't say it was concerning, because I think you can teach defense, especially a guy like Ryan Huska. I feel like he should be able to teach you how to play D, but that was kind of the only thing that I thought was slightly concerning. But I'd be curious, like, from your perspective, what do you think it's going to take for him to be a success here? Like, what's it going to take for him to hit his ceiling in Calgary? Like, what do you think the Flames need to do in order to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question there. Let's hit on a few things with that question as well. I think Ryan Huska, like you mentioned, is a good coach. Let's remember he turned Rasmus Sanderson into a full-time NHLer when people were questioning his defensive game. Oliver Shillington turned into an NHLer under Ryan Huska, and he's done it with a few other defensemen along the way. So he's had time with these defensemen to help turn them into a bona fide NHLer, a guy who can play more than just one side of the puck. And so I think when it comes to Simon Nemec, something similar is going to have to happen. One, you're going to have the player, which it sounds like he's going to be the player that's open to being coached, open to being in situations, open to being uncomfortable and learning on the fly. So a lot's going to come on to his shoulders, in my opinion, in learning that stuff, taking the coaching to heart here. Hey, your stick needs to be in this spot. Hey, when you're doing the back check here, that's got to happen. Hey, when we pinch here, we got to make sure we have this coverage here, whatever the situation may be. So I think it comes down to the proper coaching and Simon Nemec being very open to being a coachable player. And I think playing him in a ton of minutes and forcing him to learn on the fly might be a smart move for Craig Conroy, because one thing Mike Rupp said on the NHL Network is the more minutes this guy plays, the better he seems to be in the flow of the game. I'm sure that's true for a lot of players, but with a player like Simon Nemec and his ability on the offense side of the puck, you want him to have the puck. You want him to be free to play, but then also make sure that you've learned to be responsible defensively. He doesn't need to turn himself into a shutdown Robin Regeer in his own end style defenseman, but he needs to be serviceable back there. Someone who can play and defend good enough that it's not going to be a detriment to the Flames. And if he can learn that part of his game, I think he's going to be an absolute steal for the Flames, regardless of what the cost they gave up for this player. So for me, if he can be a coachable player and learn and use all these minutes that they're projecting to give this kid, I think he's going to be a good NHLer for this team. It begs the question, Robert. I'll throw this one at you because I know this is coming as well. The funniest thing I've seen on social media since this trade has been, well, the Flames have too many right-handed defensemen. Have you ever heard of an NHL executive complaining about how many right-handed defensemen they've had? I've never
No, I haven't
heard that complaint ever. There is a good world where both of these two exist. Talking about Zane Parekh and Simon Nemec, there's a world where Parekh plays the left side, Nemec on the right side, not on the same pair because that'd be a disaster. There is a world where Hunter Brzustevich is part of a package that gets traded. Zach Whitecloud might not belong for this team, but the complaint that the Flames have too many right-handed defensemen, that's absolutely wild to me, Robert. What do you make of all of these right-shot defensemen with Simon Nemec in the fold now?
Yeah, you can never have too many right-shot defensemen. And one thing to keep in mind, I think a lot of Flames fans, and us included, we both think that Hunter Brzustevich has the chance to become a pretty good NHLer. Don't think it's a guarantee. So, you got to have insurance. Same thing goes for Henry Muse. Henry Muse seems like a really good prospect. He put up great numbers in junior. I know he's coming off an injury, and now Landon DuPont's going to be taking all of his power play time, but there's no guarantee Henry Muse works out on the right side either. You're always going to need right shot D. And then on top of that, Zach Whitecloud has 2 years left on his deal, and he might not be here for the long term. You can never have too many right shot defensemen. And, I go back to the Tampa Bay Lightning when they were winning their Stanley Cups, and I think it was their left side. It was like Hedman, McDonough, and Sergachev.
Yeah.
I think those were their 3 left shot D. And then what it allowed them to do was have 3 defense pairings that you can essentially throw out at any point in the game and you could trust them. And, if something like that could happen for the Flames, if it's Parekh, Nemec, and then say they take a Verhoff or they sign Whitecloud, like I think you're happy having any of those 3 on the right side of your defense. Or like you said, you can move Zane to the left too. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think really the Flames, they need talent wherever they can get it. Like they're not the type of organization that can kind of pick and choose where they can get guys. It's like if they find talent, go and get it and try and keep them long term. And yeah, if they have 5 Zane Pareks, obviously that's not ideal, but that's not the situation right now. So yeah, I don't think that's an issue whatsoever.
All right, before we jump into the draft side of this conversation, I have to mention this just because he was part of the trade. What is Tsyplakov to you? What did you think his future is in Calgary? Because for me, this is just another player in the fold, and the wing is very full right now. But what do you make of Tsyplakov being added into this deal?
I don't make much of it. I mean, he has 1 year left on his deal. It really felt like a salary cap dump from the New Jersey Devils perspective. I guess maybe he could kind of play that Victor Olofsson type role where he's kind of in the bottom 6 and, in and out of the lineup a little bit. I don't really think much of the player, to be totally honest. They announced Simon Nemec is going to wear number 71. They still haven't announced anything about Maxim Tsyplakov. I almost wonder, like, is there a potential for him to get bought out? Are they going to look to trade him for a 5th or 6th round pick or something like that this summer? I don't think he's going to be anything important here in Calgary. But if he plays, he's 6'3", 203. Like, he adds a little bit of size to this team, which they could use. And he's a half decent skater and had a pretty good year with the New York Islanders in 24-25. But yeah, I'm not getting like too ahead of myself here. I think this is a pure salary cap dump, and I don't think he's going to be in Calgary for a long time.
Maybe they can call the Blackhawks and get like Nazar back for him or something. The way the Davidson's trading over there,
Get the Blackhawks 2027 first round pick for Tsyplakov.
Yeah, maybe.
Al Davidson would be into that.
I've got a lot of questions on social media. I asked for questions for this podcast, and most of them I got in my DMs was all about the same thing, the same conversation. It was about how does trading for Nemec change their approach to the draft. And then you listen to Pat Steinberg talk on the radio and Craig Conroy in his interviews and Barn Burner. This doesn't change the draft approach for me. It doesn't sound like it changes the draft approach for Craig Conroy. But what about for you, Robert? Does this change how you would approach the draft when it comes to the Flames? Because it really sounds like Keaton Verhoff's still very much on the table for the Flames.
You know what? If it came down to it and they had Carson Karls and Keaton Verhoff as equals, like I'd be tempted to go with Karls just because he is the left shot D man. I mean, realistically, like if your plan for the Flames is to have Parekh and Nemec in Calgary for, we'll call it the next 7 years, 7, 8, 9 years, there's going to come a point where if you draft Verhoff, that there's going to be issues with ice time. And I know I just talked about Tampa kind of with their three big defensemen on the left side there, but when it comes to three guys who are offensive defensemen who could all run a power play, like at some point there's going to be like an Erik Karlsson, Chris Letang sort of weird dynamic going on there. And I do think if you can, I think you should avoid it. If the Flames are at pick 6 and it's Verhoff, Karls, Malhotra, Bjork, like one of those guys, I think you go with the non-right shot D, specifically just because of like the role there. And I think Karls is going to be great. I think Bjork's going to be great. I think Malhotra is going to be a really good player. So I don't really think you can go wrong with any of those players. But I think I would. We talk about like always choose the best player, but when you have Nemec and Parekh, who are 20 and 22 years old, who should be playing in your top 4, I don't know if it makes sense to add a Verhoff. So yeah, I think it should change it a little bit. Like I would just say, just take right shot D out of the equation and go either for a left shot guy or go for a center. That's kind of how I look at it. What about you?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I don't change a thing. I go best available player, regardless of who it is, what it is, where they shoot, how they play. For me, it's always going to be best available because right now you're in the acquiring talent portion of your rebuild. This is where you get players. You can always trade down the line, and I know people are sick of when people say that kind of thing, but you can always trade something. But I think there's a world where Verhoff can cohabitate with these other two guys. He's a more well-rounded defenseman. He's better in his game, and I don't know if his offensive ability translates at a high level in the National Hockey League, but his two-way ability sure should. And so for me, it's best available. If Malhotra is there, I kind of run to the podium because he kind of fits a couple of different needs for the Flames. And if Karls is there, the conversation between Karls and Verhoff should be very real. But I think you stick to your list, and I think that's why you spend all that time in your scouting and in your building your list, that you stick to the list of best available. If it ends up being Verhoff, it'll be very interesting how they approach having these three guys under the umbrella. I don't know if Verhoff plays the National Hockey League next year. I don't think he's ready for it. So you're kind of booting that down a year. But for me, the approach should stay the same. It should stay as best available. I get why people lean towards your left shot D or a center if he's available. And I know Vigo's still getting a lot of love out there from people, and for good reason why. And it's interesting to watch how social media and has opinions change around the water cooler at work about how the Flames should approach this draft. This Simon Nemec trade has really done something to the Flames here, where there's a lot of different paths now for the Flames to go. And so Friday's going to be very interesting because not only has the Flames made a trade and maybe kind of changed how they're looking at the first round, you've had two other top 10 picks moved around the Flames. San Jose now has a second pick in the top 10. The Blackhawks make an absolute horrendous trade. So now it's the Buffalo Sabres with the number 4 pick. Does that change things for them? So the Flames might have a bunch of different players that they may not were expecting to be there that are going to be there at 6 to choose from. Does Buffalo settle on, a Chase Reed, or do they look at Vigo Bork because he really looks like a Buffalo Sabre type of player? Do they look at Keaton Verhoff at that spot? What are the Sabres thinking after making a trade and getting rid of Bowen Byram? What does San Jose do now at number 2 after trading for the number 9 pick? Do they just go Stenberg now at 2 and hope for whatever defenseman's there at number 9 for them? A lot of different things around the Flames, and the Flames themselves have shaped this top 10. It's going to be kind of a wild top 10 here on Friday, Robert.
Oh yeah, there's so many questions that need to be answered, and the only certainty I feel like is that I can guarantee Stenberg and McKenna will not be there for the Flames. After that, I really don't know. Like I could even see a world where Chase Reed potentially falls to them, or Malhotra falls to them. Like once we hit pick 3, because it does feel like San Jose after the trade they made, the Eklund trade, that they're going to take Stenberg with 2, and then maybe they'll take a Smits or a Rudolph at 9.
Yep.
Which I think would be a home run for them. I think that would be incredible.
Yep.
So then it really just kind of throws everything up in the air after that. So, Conroy, I think what's going to happen is it's going to get to pick 6, and there's probably going to be 1 or 2 guys that the Flames are super high on at that point. And whether it's Karls, Verhoff, Bjork, Malhotra, I think it'll be one of those 4 that'll end up with the Flames. And I think you'll be really excited about that. And, just going back to the whole like righty lefty thing, and does this change the strategy a little bit for the Flames? The one thing I didn't keep in mind was that Zane, he played the left side in junior. He played the left side the end of last season with Zach Whitecloud, and he looked pretty good over there. My only issue is that I think it's very rare you find a defenseman in the NHL that can truly excel on his offside. Especially like there's a couple of things that are really difficult. It's one, picking up pucks off the boards on your backhand when you have a forechecker coming at you a million miles an hour. That's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And then also when you're exiting your zone, sometimes you're going to have to make breakout passes on your backhand to the middle of the ice. And, like I remember TJ Brody was really good at that, but, not everybody's going to excel in that type of situation. So that's like long term, I would rather see Zane on the right side. I just think it'll make the game easier on him. But, there is the potential option there, for him to play on the left. So maybe that does, play into the idea of they'd be okay with taking Keaton Verhoff. That's one thing I forgot to keep in mind.
Yeah, and it's a good point by you. It's a very good point. And it sounds like Conroy's interested in seeing that on the left side as well for Perek. I had a guy try to come at me in a conversation about all these right-handed shots and how drafting Verhoff is the worst thing in the world. And I kind of put a hypothetical back to him. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's fast forward a year, and next year the Flames win the draft lottery and it's Landon Dupont. Do you pass on Landon Dupont because he's a right shot, or you just take the best available player and figure it out later? So that's how I'm kind of looking at this. So I know Verhoff's not Dupont level, but that's how I'm kind of approaching the draft if I'm Craig Conroy. Hey, if he's still there, I have ways around it. And one of those ways is like what you just mentioned there, Robert. Zane Perek can play the left side. He asked about it at his exit meetings with Craig Conroy. He's like, I prefer the left side. I played there in Saginaw for a couple of years. Like, so it'll be interesting to see how he performs at the NHL level over a longer period than a few games at the end of a meaningless season for the Flames. Does he feel comfortable alongside Zach Whitecloud to be there for 80, 82 games, 84 games? Can they get that kind of, and if they have that type of play from Zane Perek, then picking a Verhoff seems pretty easy to me. Like, you have another defenseman there to be on the right side. You quickly lose right side depth if you're moving a Brstevich out or a Whitecloud out. You're going to lose a little bit of depth there, and there's going to be a spot open. So it's going to be interesting how the Flames approach this draft, because there's a lot of ways they could go and a lot of ways they can make it fit here. What do you make of, and I know this isn't a Flames thing, but it kind of is, because Vigo is a huge target for a lot of Flame fans. What do you make of his potential being picked by Buffalo at number 4?
I could see it. I mean, you mentioned it earlier that he kind of feels like a Buffalo Sabre, just in terms of like he's very feisty and he's competitive and all that kind of stuff. When you watch the Sabres, that's kind of the style of play right now. So yeah, I could totally see them taking him at 4. And you take a look at the defense in Buffalo between Dahlin, Power, Samuelson. Those are 3 young studs there that are going to be part of that blue line for a long time. And then they got I forget what the prospect's name is, but it's the one that Keith Pelly mentioned randomly in his press conference. So they got him too. So they got like 4 young, like good players back there. I do think they need to kind of bolster their center ice position in Buffalo. So I think a Bjork or Malhotra makes a lot of sense for that team.
Yeah, it's an upgrade on McLeod as well, right? And they also got that nice kid from Chicago in Louis Crevier. I think he's a great depth defenseman for them. Kind of replaces what they had there in a lot of guys. And I wonder if they get Stanley back in Buffalo a little bit long term as well. It's a pretty good blue line they have there in Buffalo for sure.
Oh, it's outstanding.
So the Flames trade for Simon Nemec. Very exciting times for the Flames, but it wasn't all like bringing in players conversation. We got some news on this Wednesday as well. Been reported out there by a couple of people now that the Flames are kind of shopping around Connor Zary. They got a stacked forward group here, Robert. Something's bound to give. It sounds like they're looking for a second-round draft pick to trade out Connor Zary to help make room and alleviate kind of the logjam they have on the wings. What do you make of this news? It's a bit disappointing for me. Anyone who's listened to this podcast knows how big of a fan I am of Connor and what he could potentially do, but it kind of feels like he's fallen out of favor with Ryan Huska, and he's kind of needs a change of scenery here. What do you make of this Connor Zary news we've gotten?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to my head is that, like, it just sucks. It sucks that this didn't work out. I really liked Zary, the player. I really especially like Zary, the person. He seems like an awesome guy, like really good sense of humor, down to earth, looks like a great teammate. So, it just kind of feels like another first round pick that hasn't worked out, and the Flames kind of botched his development a little bit. I think more so this year than the last couple of years. Just it does feel like he didn't get the opportunity to truly shine, and part of that was on him. But at the same time, when you have a young player like that, like I would have rather seen Huska give him like 40 games consistently in one role, and it being more of an offensive role, and just try to see if he could figure it out. Because last season was a write-off. The whole point of last season was basically just to get some young guys to improve, and Zary actually got worse. So yeah, it's just tough. It's just after that knee injury in Anaheim a couple years ago, things just have not been the same for him. He's completely lost a step. You can tell he's lost his confidence. He doesn't go to the middle of the ice as much anymore. You know, in between his lack of skating and his weak shot, like it's been hard for him to generate the offense that someone with his hands and his smarts should be able to generate. So yeah, there's a million forwards here. I would rather, like, I think Zary has a longer, I think he has the chance to be a better player long term than guys like Martin Pospisil and Adam Klapka, Yegor Sharangovich. Like, those would be the guys that I would be looking to move out instead of Zary. But if him and Huska just don't see eye to eye, and there's not space for him anymore, then I understand why they're looking to do what they do. But like, it sucks. It's just really disappointing that this Connor Zary story ends this way. Like, it really sucks.
Yeah, the Flames have to wear this one. This is a failure on their part, and I wouldn't be so quick to say that if we didn't already see this with guys like Juuso Välimäki and Sam Bennett and other first-round picks that they've kind of fumbled around here and haven't been able to develop, especially centermen. So it's disappointing that it's come to this where they're actively out there spreading this news that, hey, we're shopping Connor Zary. We're looking for a second-round pick or equivalent of a second-round pick for this player. It's a shame that he wasn't able to get a role. It's a shame the coach never really gave him a role. It's kind of who bends first. Do I get the role, then I can show you, or you have to show me to get the role? Like, how does that work? So it kind of like nothing was really defined with Connor Zary. And it's a shame because you see the hands, you see the smarts in his game. He doesn't have the greatest boots, but those players can find ways to be effective. You saw Mark Stone and Matthew Tkachuk make big careers when they have bad feet. It's possible in the National Hockey League. And I think at this point now, because he's been pushed down the depth charts and you've got all these other players coming, like you have Wittenbach coming and Potter, and you've got Suniev on the cusp here. You've got Reshny coming. You've got Costanza. You've got so many other players coming now that it's hard to see a future for him, even if he is better than some of the players we have. They're going to keep around, like the Potsel, like the Klapka, because the role does matter then. How do you get Connor Zary in your middle six or top six when there's not a defined spot for him, and he hasn't shown that he deserves that top spot either? So maybe a change of scenery will spark him. He's going to go somewhere else and just flourish. I just know it. And then we're all going to do the same thing we've done whenever any other of these draft picks get traded away, and we're going to hang our heads when they come back and what could have been with Connor Zary. I think you put it there perfectly, Robert. It's pretty disappointing to read at the end of the day, this news on Connor Zary.
And I really believe that if there's a team out there that is kind of lacking in depth up front, that if you put Zary in a middle six forward position and you put him on a second power play and you just you tell him, hey, your role is to produce offense, I could see a world where he ends up turning into a pretty decent player. Like I'm looking at teams like Winnipeg. You know, Connor Zary almost goes into Winnipeg and becomes like their fifth best forward. I look at a team like Pittsburgh, who is losing a couple forwards in free agency this year. You know, could he thrive in a place like Pittsburgh? Like, those are the types of teams that I could see him going to and actually having a half decent career. It's not going to be Sam Bennett, where he goes on to play in the Olympics and is a Conn Smythe Trophy winner, but I think he could end up having a pretty solid career in the NHL.
Yeah, me too. So busy couple of days for the Flames, trading for Simon Nemec and Tsyplakov. Out go some draft picks and depth defensemen, and then now it's Connor Zary watch as we head in towards Friday and the draft. It's going to be very interesting, Robert, how that draft works on day one. Very excited to see how that breaks down. The Flames still have that 30th pick they could play around with as well. So lots of balls still up in the air. And because the NHL cannot seem to chill this week, I'm sure this podcast will be outdated by midnight tonight. So enjoy it while you can. Robert, any last words here before we sign off? And how much are you looking forward to Friday now?
Oh, even I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Like, I even think, there could be fireworks tomorrow. So, yeah, between not over. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like, I'm pumped. If it's going to be anything like it's been the last 3 days, I'm psyched. And, yeah, from a Flames perspective, I mean, the only other move I could just see them making is moving up, and whether that's into the 18 to 25 range, or, maybe they swing for the fences and they try to get another top 10 pick, from a team like Winnipeg. Something like that could happen too. So yeah, I'm really, really excited, and I can't wait to see what Conroy's got up his sleeve here.
Keep being aggressive, Conroy. That 9th and 10th overall picker is dying to be traded for. So let's see what we can do here. So looking forward to it. Thank you so much for making us part of your podcast rotation. Hopefully you enjoyed this midweek podcast. We'll be back on Monday to break down all of the rest of the trades and the NHL draft in reaction to what Craig Conroy was able to do for the Flames and ahead of free agency. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy Friday, folks, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.